Hello and welcome everyone to another InventRight TV show. My name is Andrew Krause. I'm one of the co-founders here at InventRight. I co-founded InventRight with Stephen Key 24 years ago, and since then we've had students in over 65 countries, and we mentor inventors to license their products. This is one of those very special YouTube shows that we love, where we bring on a student that has licensed a product or sold a product along with their coach, so they can talk about their experience. You can kind of see a little bit about their product as well when we're able to share it, which we are in this case. And so we have Cannard on. Cannard, welcome.
Hello.
And then we have his coach, Scott Putnam. And I think you had a different coach before that. I think you had Kirk before Scott, right?
Shout out to Kurt.
Yeah, shout out to
Yeah.
you, Kirk.
Buddy.
So, so I think what we're going to do here is take a look at his products and talk about a little bit about his product. And obviously he's had some success at this point. So you'd probably want to hear, like, how did he get from being just like you, not having a product in the marketplace yet, or maybe some of you have, to this point? And what did he do? What was his mindset? What were some of the issues he had? Let's just be real about it. But first, let's talk about the really fun part. We'll go ahead and throw this up on the screen. So tell us about this product, Kinnard.
The shipping container net. It is a piece of hardware used to modify or connect ISO shipping containers. Shipping containers have 8 corners on them that allow various connections, usually to connect them to some modality of transportation, i.e. a truck, a ship, in most cases. But for the last, I don't know, couple of decades, there's a big interest in using shipping containers for other than transportation, whether it be storage, whether it be manufacturing, or even some sort of dwelling. And I had some initial needs in this space to be able to connect various devices to a shipping container, and I wasn't pleased with the offering in the current market. So I started to develop a system of devices to allow connections. And as I started to, and I might be jumping ahead of myself, as I started to develop those products, I started thinking that, wow, this could be something that is useful for more than just myself, and how do I find some protection for it? But
well, tell us really quickly, what were you doing for yourself? Why were you? What fun stuff were you doing with shipping containers? I know a lot of people do a lot of fun stuff with shipping containers these days.
Yes, well, I wanted them to connect them together in unique and innovative configurations, particularly to build vertiports, which is very similar to a heliport, but for aircraft that take off vertically and land vertically, eVTOLs. And to make these structures, I wanted to use anywhere from 3 to 8 shipping containers, and be able to connect them in the field with common tools. And there wasn't anything out there that could make this happen. So it's kind of like, well, for what I work on now, my designs for vertiports required me to develop components to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. So now you sold this product to a company. Do you retain the rights to use it in certain aspects and they in others? How does that work?
Great question. So they have the entire rights to the intellectual property, except for I have the rights to use it, to integrate it into larger designs like the vertiport.
Okay, and that's another product that you're working on.
It's a system of products that I'm working on, correct?
Nice. Okay. So how does it feel? Was this just a piece of cake to do a deal? Was it a giant pain in the butt? Did it take longer than you wanted to? Did you need to reach out to more companies? Obviously, there's not. I mean, sometimes you got a kitchen gadget. Hey, you got 30, 40 companies, right? And with this one, you probably didn't have that many. But maybe I'm wrong. So how did that go?
Well, Andrew, when I first came to inventRight, I spoke to you, and I was pretty focused on and had a clear idea of what I needed to do, that this wasn't going to be necessarily a consumer product. This was going to be a system of products, and it was going to be business to business. It's going to be an industrial product. And you were talking to you were very forthright about, hey, there's a very specific formula, and I think that you can adapt it to what you're trying to do, but you're going to have to be focused. And sometimes that you find that if you have too many products in the hopper, especially your first go around, that it can be a distraction. So you need to be focused, and which was sage advice. And I picked this first product because I thought it was going to be the simplest, and it was something that I could focus on, and it was going to be a cornerstone of what I needed to do in the future. And was it a piece of cake, or did it take longer than I thought it was? I think it definitely took longer than Scott thought it should. I can be pedantic at details, and sometimes that gets in the way of progress. But I was pleasantly surprised with the outcome towards the end. I definitely there was experience being bogged down, or even some frustrations, or even some doubts. I mean, but these are those aren't exclusive to inventing. That's business in general.
Scott,
So
obviously Kinnard's
Yeah.
a pretty smart guy, but everybody struggles with something. If you're not struggling, you're not doing the work. What
Yeah.
did you find? Was he kind of detail oriented on some things?
You know what comes to mind is your PPA. And but I want to frame this a little bit because Kinnard's one of those guys, like the minute you start talking to him, you're like, wow, this guy is really smart, very articulate, a deep thinker. I wasn't thinking about, at our first call, like, oh, how's that going to go when we get to the PPA? I was just thinking, this is a bright guy. He's got a lot going on, a lot of really cool things happening. And I think you're a hard worker though, and you're a good listener. So for the coaching calls, you would come back and maybe you didn't get everything done that we talked about, but a lot of the main things, that we were talking through and that needed to get done got done, and everything was flowing really well. So we got to the PPA, and then it was like, hey, Cannard, where are you at? What's going on? And then he comes on. He's like, is this supposed to be this hard? I'm like, no, it's not supposed to be this hard. What's going on? And we talked through it. And I think you win the prize for the most number of pages in your PPA. And I'm trying to remember what it is, like 80 something.
Oh my God.
yeah, yeah.
So that was both. I was both shocked and impressed at that number. It was, yeah, just awesome guy. Like, I felt like we became kind of friends through the coaching calls too, and got to know each other a
Absolutely.
little bit. There was a lot of work that was getting done, but we also had a lot of fun. So I really
Well,
appreciated it. Glad to work
let
with
me
you.
ask you this, Kinnard. So let's say you had another product in any space. Let's just say it's a kitchen gadget or something. Um, and you're hitting the PPA, would you make it a lot shorter? Would you find that it's a lot easier? And also, just generally, when you do the same stuff the second time, it's always quite a bit easier. Would you take the
Right.
same obsessive? I'm using that word loosely. It sounds like you were. Sounds like you were a little obsessed. Would you take that same obsessive approach, or would you just pop it out?
Hey, I would definitely pop it out, and I'll tell you this. This speaks to the conciseness, or of the strategy, the formula of the 10-step program, and specifically to writing the PPA as you and Stephen have designed, and as Scott has coached it. You can create a PPA that will give you perceived ownership, will give you leverage in negotiations using this strategy, quicker than if you were researching the steps on your own. Even before you can understand all of the nuances of a PPA, the intricate components of a PPA, the system makes it so that you don't have to necessarily be bogged down by the minutia of those little things. I found myself seeing those little tiny details and being so like my brain and my mind is open to this process that's amazing, and it turned into kind of a rabbit hole. It's like, oh, well, what about this, and what about this, and how detailed do I need to be, or and that's what happens kind of when you're in it. And I realized that Scott was trying to pull me back to see kind of the bigger picture, and to say it's the process is kind of set up so that you don't have to bang your head against the wall, and that's just a lesson learned.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot going through that process. I definitely understand that you can expedite the process, and the benefits of expediting the process, so that you have more time designing, you have more time engaging with your market or your industry, and I see the benefit of that. And so the next project that I could definitely write it a lot quicker, just because it is the second time. But I would definitely try to limit my time writing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds, I'm sure you took to heart, what Scott and Stephen, everybody here at InventRight always says. Think about the variations, workarounds, improvements. All it requires you to do is be an inventor. So, but people get it fixed in their head. This is what it is. This is what it is. And that's great. And if you got figured out what it is for the marketing, so it competes in the marketplace, that's what's going to be in your sell sheet. But with the provisional, you got to think about what else could it be? What are the other ways it could be done? And you, I'm sure, did that in spades. But you also went into probably detail that you didn't need to. And that's how you ended up with an 80-page PPA. No, I don't think I've ever. I think that's a record. Is that a record for your students, Scott?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because Kinnard kind of disappeared for a week or two, and then he came back, and he's like, "Okay, my PPA is about done. It's 85 pages or whatever." My first thought is, this is like a chunk of metal with 2 bolts. Like, there's no electronics, there's no solar panels, there's no enriched uranium here. What are we writing about? Oh my God. But
he wanted to keep it covered. So, but it's really nice, Cannard, that, somebody that has sold one of their ideas says, look, it wasn't all a piece of cake for me. I struggle with different things. So let's ask your coach, Scott, what was one of the things that Kinnard did really well that benefited him that some other people struggle with? What was one of the biggest things? Is it his mindset, his stick-to-itiveness, his consistency in doing things every week? I'm just making up random stuff here. Let me know.
Yeah, if I had to pick one thing, I would say his determination. Like I felt like no matter what, we're gonna get this thing done. And yeah, there were challenges. There were things that slowed the process down, and you had some pretty in-depth conversations with the company that bought the product, and then there was also other companies that may be interested, and there was a little bit of history there. But I felt like through the whole process, you were determined to make this happen, and you had the perseverance. Like, I'm getting knocked down, but I'm getting back up, and I'm going to continue going.
Let's jump to Kinnard now. So Kinnard, what was going through your head when you do something for the first time in your life? It's always stressful. Maybe you're one of those people that's always trying new things. Maybe only in the areas you're comfortable with. Maybe you were comfortable with this, maybe you weren't. But what's going through your head so we can get through to the audience? Like, here was my mindset and how I got here. As far as like just keeping going.
Follow the process.
Okay.
Follow the process. There's going to be plenty of times where you're going to be distracted, deterred, frustrated. doubtful, follow the process. I was thinking, let the coaches help push you through the process. You signed up for the program for a reason. You seeked out this support system. Use it and have faith in it. And that's what it was. And I'll tell you that there were times where it seemed like the right thing to do was to just stop, was to move on to another product, or to take a break and reevaluate. And it was the faith in the process. It was leaning on Scott when I was in those times that actually saw us through the finish line. And in the finish line, I think the challenge is that most people can get to the finish line if they can see it, or they know where the light at the end of the tunnel is. But for a new process, licensing, and with innovative products in different markets, the finish line doesn't look the same for any project, and especially for your first time. And so you need the support of your coach. And that's what kept me going. It's like, I'm going to trust the system. I'm gonna trust coach. And when the finish line revealed itself, all of a sudden it was just there. It was there because of the commitment. It was there because of the hard work. It was there because of the 10-step process. And there it was. And now I know. And as I wrote just a little follow-up after I sold the intellectual property, explaining that do the work, do the process. Something will come from it. Something in something worth, something valuable, and most likely monetarily valuable if you work the process.
Do you feel like the next project you work on is going to be easier because you're familiar with the process, been through it?
Oh,
hopefully, fingers crossed. Well, is it going to be? It's going to be at the very least more familiar, right? Not easier maybe, but less. Maybe it'll give you. It seemed like you had a lot of confidence in your coach Scott and in yourself and in the process, but is it going to be just that much more clear? And you'll have a little bit more, even more confidence because it worked for you.
Confidence, experience. My perspective of business is just different. I see business more through the lens of licensing now than before, and so it's not even something. It's not. You can wrap it up in this idea of the next project, but it's not the next project for me. This is actually like what I do for work every day now. Is my projects are designing or research, market research, then designing a product that fits that market, then thinking about, okay, who's going to be on my hit list, and how am I going to get into these people? How am I going to get in? And then, what is the negotiation going to look like? What kind of licensing deal is it going to be? So this is just how I look at business. So it's I have a fishing pole now. It's like I know how to fish, and regardless of whether the next product the next time is easier or not, I have the system, and it will get easier as I use the system.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering our conversation right, when you were interested in the program, you're talking about these helipads and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, sounds like kind of difficult. And I seem to recall, maybe I'm like, can we break it down? Is there a component that you can sell to somebody else? I seem to recall us having that conversation. This is a while back.
Yeah.
Scott's been your coach, not me. But was that helpful that you broke it down to a component that somebody else wanted for other purposes as well? And you're
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just
Absolutely.
remembering that now. But you know,
Yeah.
you and Scott, you guys did all the hard work. You did most of it. Scott just used his wisdom as an InventRight wizard to guide you. And I really appreciate you joining us from the airport there. That means a lot to us. That's great. Um, it's amazingly quiet there, or maybe your earbuds are just really good because we can't hear.
Technology.
Yeah, technology. There
Technology.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I wanted to make a point too that, Kinnard, for you, you were able to sell this product for a nice chunk of money without spending about that much money on a full-blown utility patent. I mean, you sold this product with a provisional. I mean, maybe probably the world's greatest provisional that's ever been written in that long. But still, it was a provisional, right? $60 to
Yes.
file it, and
Yeah.
boom. So I think that's an important point. As IP always, those questions always come up. So I think that's a cool part of the story too.
It's definitely, it's not necessarily the quality of the PPA. It's the concept of perceived ownership. It's the leverage. It's
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
it's using it with the sales sheet. It's using it with the, the scripts to get in. You're calling potential licensees. All this stuff can be used over and over again on different, as Andrew said, on more than one component of the system. When I design anything for my system, I'm thinking about sell sheets. I'm thinking about, can this be licensed or sold to somebody individually, as an individual component. I'm thinking about how to leverage the PPA, even in things that might not necessarily require a provisional patent, but even leveraging things like copyright. Or if I have something, it's like, how do I write a PPA for this specific thing so that I can create some perceived ownership?
Hmm.
It's powerful.
Scott, I don't think I know we're going to hear from Kinnard on more successes, and
Yeah.
some products he'll work on he won't license as well because that's just part of the game. But Kinnard, thank you so much. Love to have you on again soon. Let us know when you license another product, and
Yeah,
we're always here to help you. You know that.
I appreciate that. The
Yeah.
support has been there. The support is felt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Fly safe.
I
Yeah.
will.
All right. Take
Congratulations
care.
again, man.
What
All
was that,
right.
Scott?
Oh, I just said congratulations again. I'm proud of you. You did a great job. You worked hard. You great listener. Working the system, working the program, and yeah, it paid off. So I love your analogy of like, hey, I've been down this road. I got the fishing pole. Now I know how to fish. And that's such a different perspective than when you're going through it the first time. So I'm excited to
Yeah.
see what you're going to do in the future, and keep rocking it, man.
All right.
All right, gentlemen.
Good deal.
Take
Take care,
care.
everybody. Keep inventing, and we'll catch up with you next time. See ya. Bye.